Listen to your elders' advice, not because they are always right, but because they have more experience of being wrong. Unknown author. All right. Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad Podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I'm your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. If you're tuning in live, thank you for giving me your time so early. All right. We're back at it. Today's Friday. We got another episode of Dad Talk. This is where I just kind of step away from the politics and maybe the culture war, in as much as you can. I mean, culture is part of being a dad. Politics also is part of being a dad, but we try to step away, let that be Monday through Thursday, and talk just kind of more from a dad perspective, just kind of casual. This isn't libertarian DL. This is just dad, just giving it to you straight. So before we get into the show today, let me tell you that next week, I will not be streaming live. I'll drop episodes, but I will not stream live. I've taken some time off work. I'm taking a little bit of time from streaming live next week. That's so I can do some catch up in the background here. I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I'm kind of behind on, so I got to catch back up. For you folks out there in Spotify land, iTunes land, I am so sorry I am behind, but we will get caught back up. I want to make some changes, create some additional videos, and I got a bunch of things that I need to do. So if I don't have to focus on, producing a show, then that allows me to take that time and focus on, making some improvements and some changes that I want to make. So look forward to that. So that's next week. But again, I'll be dropping some episodes. I've got some premium content from Rumble that I can drop. And then I will be back at it on the 8th of September. So that's when we will be back. All right, today, talking about Snoop Dogg. Now, if you had told me when I was, I don't know, like 25, 30, if you said, dude, you're going to get older and you're going to make a podcast, I would have been like, no, probably not. Or I might have, I don't know. That one, if you said, if you're going to talk about politics, to a wide audience, I might go, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Yeah, I like that. Because I've been talking about politics and culture since I was in high school. So if you told me that I was going to do a podcast, I might have kind of chuckled at you, and I might have been like, really? But I wouldn't have thrown it out. But if you said one day you're going to be talking as a dad and you're going to use Snoop Dogg to give young men advice, I would have absolutely laughed at you. I would have been like, say what? I would have been like, cracker, please. That's what I would have said. So that's what I'm going to do today. So he made the rounds recently. He got a lot of people stirred up over this comment. We're going to address that comment, okay? But I went and I watched the episode that it was in. And this is the only way I get to watch other podcasts is if I'm doing research, so it's kind of interesting, but it was actually very interesting. Now, I'm not going to say that it was just full of just nugget after nugget of wisdom, but there were some interesting things in there that were good takeaways, and I think kind of like counterpoints, in my opinion, to some of the messaging that we see out there, specifically for young men, relationships and stuff like that. And I honestly was not expecting it. Now, I wouldn't say that I'm surprised because Snoop Dogg is old, and I don't mean that in a let me see if I can let's see here. Let's find out how old he is. So he's 53 years old, right? And when I say he's old, I'm not dogging on him like, dude, that guy's old. Just no. What I'm saying is like he has wisdom at some point. Like that's the expectation is that if you're 53, you should have some wisdom, some knowledge to impart to somebody that's, I don't know, 40 or 30 or, definitely 20, right? And as he gets older, that's how it's supposed to work. You get wiser as you get older. 47-year-old me, it's kind of weird. He's 6 years older than me. I would have never guessed that. But 47-year-old me has much more wisdom than 27-year-old me. It's not that I didn't know some things back then and I got them right. It's not that. It's just that you haven't lived long enough to have the experiences to kind of help you sort out what's true in life, what's good in life. That's the kick. That's the kicker, right? So when you're 50, well, I'm looking forward to being 53. I mean, I'm not trying to rush it, but I'm looking forward because that's 6 years from now, about 5.5 technically. And then what am I gonna? What kind of wisdom will I have accrued in just the 6 years between today and then, or tomorrow, I guess, right? What kind of wisdom will I have accrued? How will I look back on my life and go, yeah, and then just think about the things that I did. So let me play this first clip, and we're gonna go to the Dad TV just because I don't know. So he was on this podcast, and the name of the podcast is It's Giving. I've never actually heard of this podcast, but he was on it, and it's cool. So here's this first video of him, and this one is him talking about success and marriage, which I thought, wait, that's great for a dad talk show, right? Let's play it.
Okay, so we talk a lot about relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've been married almost 3 decades.
Yes.
And there's a lot of chatter in the community about men saying in 2025 there's no benefit to marriage for a man. Do you believe that there is a benefit to marriage?
Okay, before he answers, let's get something straight. He's been married for 3 decades. He's been married longer than I have. Okay? And what's interesting, and I'm trying to remember if it's this particular clip that he says it in, but what is interesting is that he where was I going with that? I lost my train of thought on that. I promise you guys, I am not high like Snoop Dogg. I'm just trying to remember. There was he said some similar things in different clips, and so I'm trying to remember if this particular clip has it. But he did tell. I think he just before this clip, he had been telling a story about how he met his now wife when he was young, and he said something to the effect of, she was from the hood, but she wasn't ghetto or something like that. In other words, he was like, she lived in this bad area, but she didn't behave poorly. She had some self-respect. And he said that was his first and one and only girlfriend that he ever had. It was really amazing. And I was like, I was actually kind of surprised. I was like, for real? Like, because not because I saw Snoop Dogg as, the pimp that got all the girls, but kind of. I mean, if you're a rapper, you do get girls. Like, that's just how it works, right? Like, girls are attracted to fame and money, and if you're a rapper, if you're a good one, then you have fame and money. So I was actually kind of surprised. But let's listen to his answer. Remember, he's been married 30 years, and he's answering this idea of is it a value add for men in 2025 to look at it and say, yes, I should be married?
I believe if I wasn't married, I wouldn't be as successful as I was,
Ooh.
or have been, or am. I don't believe that I would be as, strong and right minded and loving and caring. I don't believe that I would be who I am today if I wasn't married, because I have to have a strong foundation,
Mm.
a strong place to come home to, a strong, leader who can raise kids and also support her husband, and then be a leader when I'm down and I'm out and my body and my mind can't function, but to keep me up and to be there for me. So marriage is beautiful when you handle it with care.
Mm.
Oh, oh, that was a beautiful line. Marriage is beautiful when you handle it with care. Spot on. I don't think you could be any more succinct and dead on point than to say it like that. It was a beautiful line.
Mm.
When you respect your vows, when you do the things that are supposed to be done with a marriage, and I ain't talking about the paperwork, I'm talking about the love.
Mm-hmm.
Because paper says this, but love is that.
Mm.
And I believe that my marriage has been strong because my wife has been my friend. She's been my homie. She's been a gangster. She's been a rider. She's been a forgiver. Because a lot of times, when you marry, you make a lot of mistakes, and somebody has to forgive.
Mm.
And she's forgiven me so many times because I made a lot of mistakes when I didn't understand what marriage was about,
Mm.
and I didn't know how to be a man when I was still a boy.
Mm.
That's brilliant advice. And so here's the takeaway. They have that saying. It's an old saying. Us olds, we like our sayings. And it's behind every, powerful man, or behind every successful man is an even more powerful or successful woman. There's various ways that it's being said. And I know that feminists, maybe they get upset about it. But the truth of the matter is, if there is a man and he is doing well, like 9 out of 10 times, he has an awesome wife, or, maybe girlfriend, but more than likely wife, if it's been over time that he's acquired this, his reputation and his success and whatnot, there's an awesome woman behind him, exactly what Snoop said. When you come home, you're tired, your body's wore out. You've got somebody there that, is helping push you along, that's helping, take care of you in a sense. And it goes both ways, right? So I'm not suggesting that men are supposed to go out necessarily and they do all of the, they have to be the breadwinner and the woman has to be the cook. This is not what I'm getting at. What I'm talking about is the dynamic between the two, and that dynamic that makes a relationship successful is exactly what he said. It's when, you've got each other's backs. You're that ride or die, if you will, right? You're the homie. You're the best friend. You're that somebody that if you're frustrated and you come home, you can vent to. If you're excited about something that just happened, you could come home and they're excited with you, right? If I know men don't like hearing this. We get all this talk about it, but if you need to shed a tear, that's the person you can shed a tear in front of. I skip all the nonsense of like dudes like never cry in front of a woman. I mean, no, you shouldn't be weepy sobby. Not on a regular at least. I mean, if your mom just died, then yes, you're going to be weepy sobby, and yeah, fine. Your wife should be cool with that, and she should be supportive, right? If you're just weeping sobbing every time you watch a movie, perhaps maybe you need to dry it up a little bit, But the point being here, the broader point, is that if it's a good relationship, if it's a good marriage, that's the person that can see every single side of you. And they should know every single side of you after some time, at least. Maybe not initially, right? You're still getting to know each other. And why is that? He's been married 30 years. How is it that you couldn't be married for 30 years and that person know everything about you, know exactly who you are? I'll tell you a story one time from a while back. I was what was I think I was going to my wife was being dropped off by one of her friends, and I was picking her up. I'm trying to remember where I was picking her up, but I think it was at somebody's house. Yeah, it was our good friend. Our good friend. So I don't remember exactly, and we might have actually been dating. No, we were married. We were married. It was early marriage. So she was being dropped off, and I was told by this is our good friend. In fact, I think it was the friend at the house who we met. I said this so weird. It was we met at this friend's house at a party, I believe. And so I pulled into the parking lot. I got there a little bit before they parking lot the driveway. I got there a little bit before they did, like 5 minutes. And I was like, "Hey, I'm here." And they were like, "Yeah, you can go in." Right? Because he had where he lived, he could leave his door unlocked or whatever. He's like, "Yeah, you can just go in." And I sat in the car, and we pulled in, and we got out. Hi, how's it going? Blah blah blah. And he's like, "Hey, I thought you could. I told you you could go ahead and go in." And my wife was like, "Told you?" And I was like, "What happened?" And she was like, she said, when the message was sent, like, "Hey, just go ahead and go in the house. We'll be there in a few minutes." My wife was like, "Yeah, he's going to be sitting in his car." And then he's like, "How do you know that?" And she's like, "Because I know my husband." Right? She knew the person. She knew that I don't just go, like, even if it's my friend's house, I don't just go into houses. It's just not my thing. Right? So my wife knew me. Right? And as we go along, as we stay married longer and longer, we're at 12 years now, we know each other more and more. And the point here is that this is somebody you're supposed to grow with, because there does become a point where you know that person so well that you could harm them, right? Because you know what hurts, you know what makes them tick. They're vulnerable. However, you're supposed to grow into that vulnerability. Now, yeah, some people may be more perceptive, right? There are people that could pick up on things a lot sooner than you do. But if you're growing together, then you're not only growing in vulnerability, but you're growing in, support and all the things that make up a good relationship. So he didn't outright say it, but he basically said, yes, there's a value add in men getting married today if you find the right woman. So all this talk online about it's not worth it for a man, I think that's garbage. And I think you got, like, the voices that I hear that are promoting this idea tend to be guys that are in this like red pill type sphere, the manosphere, whatever, and they have girlfriends. And I'm sorry, if you have a girlfriend, I'm not listening to you on marriage advice. If you've been married 1 year, I'm going to take it with a grain of salt. If you've been married 10 years, well, now you've got something to say. And if you've been married 30 years, you should have some wisdom. You probably do. Most people do. Not always. Like some people, that's just not their forte to give out wisdom and stuff like that. And maybe they weren't perceptive. Maybe they managed a relationship for 30 years, but they're not the advice giving guy. But most people, after 30 years, you should have some wisdom. So I think he was dead on there. And yes, absolutely, there is a place for marriage for men today in 2025. Don't let anybody tell you different. And trust me, I'm telling you, the people that tell you no, that tell you that there isn't, go look and see what kind of relationship. See if they got a marriage that's 30 years old. Guarantee you they don't. No man in his right mind who's 30 years old, who's got a 30-year marriage or a 10-year marriage is going to be like, yeah, that's not worth it. Not if he's got a good one. If he's got a crappy one, then he doesn't belong giving you advice. So learn from those who have been before you and have gotten it right. So let's see. Let's look at the next clip here. This next clip is good. It kind of follows that. This one is talking about simps. Oh, what happened? Oh, I'm in the wrong spot here. So this one is talking about simps. So let's see what we got here. Let's go.
Wow. So how did you get around? Because I really feel like on the internet, like I think simps are women winning. I personally say, like, when people are like, "Oh, that's corny. That's a simp." I like a simp. I like corny. That means you care. I feel like men are taught to act like just be savage, in and out, sleep with the girl, smash the girl, and that's really that on that.
No, we all care. It's just some of us don't know how to be public with it. Some of us is
Mm,
private. When you get a man privately, she's doing all of that great stuff you said.
mm,
But who gonna do it publicly? Who gonna feel good about it?
right.
Who gonna stand on it and it's a part of their everyday mechanism? That's the difference. Like we get projections off of what people think you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like if you ask me now, they're really taking the masculinity out of men.
Ooh, please tell me more.
Yeah,
How?
I look at commercials, I look at everything that comes on TV, movies, TV shows, and it's always including some form of having a black man not as strong as he could be.
Mm,
You understand what I'm saying? Like, as a man as strong as he could be, we showing different sides and different elements of the black man, which is cool. But when you pushing this as the front and forgetting that this is always the lead, because
mm,
without this, we can't reproduce.
mm,
Hello?
mm-hmm.
We can't continue to bring tribes of generations into this world when this ain't in the front.
Mm.
When this is in the front, I got 10 grandbabies.
Dang.
Because this is the man.
All right. Now, I might have to parse that out for some folks. Okay? So basically what he's telling you, he's saying like, look, the perpetuation of the species really starts with a masculine man getting out there. And he's also acknowledging that, yes, men have all these different, different sides to them. And what we see on television is we don't really see the masculine part, the part that we can look at and say, that could be me, right? So let me explain to you. When you're a little boy, you watch, or when I was a little boy, maybe not you, there's different things out today, but when I was a boy, we watched like Rambo, okay? Now, I'm not saying Rambo is your masculine role model for marriage, okay? But just follow with me. So we watch Rambo as little boys, and then we run out and we grab our BB gun, at least I did, and we chase each other around shooting each other, right? Because we want to be Rambo, because we recognize the masculinity that's in there. We want that masculinity, okay? And there were tons of movies like that. There's Rambo, there's Rocky, all these movies. And I've told you before that I believe men need adventure, battle, beauty, right? It's like you go on an adventure, you have a battle, then you get the girl. Like that kind of very simplistic way of looking at it, right? And that's what we get from a lot of these movies. That's why we're sad if at the end of the movie the hero doesn't get the girl for whatever reason, or if he has to say like, oh, well, I can't, the girl wants him, so he's going to get the girl, but then he has to make a decision. And then we're sad for him, but we recognize like he's being masculine, right? Now that's the little kid in us. So what about the adult, right? Because I'm 47. I'm not watching Rambo and then thinking, you know what? Maybe I should go in the yard and be chased around with a BB gun like I did when I was 15. That's not how it works. Today, I need different men to look up to. And so what Snoop was pointing out, he's like, look, we see on TV, we don't really see this masculinity from men that can be role models, if you will, in television and in film and, television and movies. And we don't really see it. What we see is like this caricature of men. So I remember this in the 90s. Remember all the family shows that they had, like the one with like Steve Urkel, and then you had like what was the other one? There was a bunch of them. I should have made sure to look them up so I'd have them on the ready. But there was like Full House. There was Family something. Well, I don't remember the titles of them. But then you had like Tim the Toolman Taylor, Home Improvement, right? Look at that one just in specific. So he played a dad that was kind of goofy, not quite always present, but really tried hard, and like what made the show funny was, he'd have a dishwasher and he's like, oh, this dishwasher takes a whole hour. Like, what if I just tune it up? And so then instead of an hour, it washes the dishes in 30 minutes. And so he'd be like, power, right? More power, right? He's like this little gimmick part of the show. And that's fine. But what they didn't show They didn't show Tim the Toolman Taylor as being like this competent dad where, the family kind of comes to him and they're like, you know what? We could use it. No, what they tended to show was that he was well-intentioned. He was well-meaning, good intentions, but he got it wrong. And then he had to have the wife come in and kind of, illustrate to him what he got wrong. And there are times where that happens. There are times in our relationship here where I'm interacting with my son and my wife pulls me aside later and she's like, I think you missed something. And that's a good thing. That's part of having a good spouse. But we should also recognize that there's the time where the wife might pull you aside and say, man, you handled that very well. That was awesome, right? And we don't see that in our films. We don't see that in our movies. And we haven't seen it. I mean, you might find a few films here and there where you do see it. But more often, you're going to just see the goofy side, or you're going to see the sappy side, if you will. The guy that cries, but not the guy that knows when it's time to be stoic and when it's time to lead. We don't see that nearly as much. You see it more in movies, maybe not so much in sitcoms. Now, I haven't seen sitcoms lately. I don't even know if they have them out there. So maybe there's a new one out there that really shows men, being masculine and being men. The Rambo version for the adult men to look at. Or you might think of it as the young man, right? So when I'm 7 or 8 or whenever I'm allowed to watch Rambo, right, I get excited and then I rush out and I want to play Rambo. Okay, that's cool. I basically am saying I want to be this masculine man. Well, as I get older, I obviously need to move away and step up from Rambo. So what is that, right? So maybe I watch a military movie and I see that there's a military man in there who just seems to get it just right. He balances emotion and he balances toughness. Maybe I grab onto that. But what is there in television? What is there in commercial? I don't think we're showing it. And I think that Snoop Dogg is correct. We've lost some masculinity, right? We've lost the part that's the more rough and tough part. This is the Clint Eastwood type, right? Remember Gran Torino, right? Like that was kind of like depicting the opposite side, right? So you had this old man, he's a bit grumpy, and he's coarse and he's tough. He doesn't show a lot of emotion, right? Like that's the other side of it. And I think it's necessary it's necessary to focus on different aspects at different times. So Gran Torino was fine because it focused on this particular element of a man. And other films that maybe focus on more the emotional part of a man, that's fine too. But we also need that somewhere in the middle that shows us and says, yeah, actually, it can be both. And it's better if it's both. But we don't really see that. So I think he nails it there. That was a really great comment. And that's something that you definitely learn, as you get older, and he's a grandfather now. Speaking of a grandfather, let's talk about that clip that went viral, that flipped out. Now, what's interesting is if you go to the link to this episode is in the show notes. If you go there and you try to find this clip, they edited it out. And the interesting thing is they put a comment in there. They're like, hey, this accidentally got edited out. And I was like, oh, really? You accidentally edited out the part that went viral and a lot of people were giving Snoop Dogg crap to. How convenient is that? You accidentally have had that. Like, come on, quit playing games. We're not dumb. We know this. We know that you edited it out on purpose. But the internet was able to provide because the internet does its thing. And so let's play that clip and let's talk about it. So he's talking about going to the movies, and I don't think it's the full clip. This is as much as I could find online because they edit out that part. So I was not able to see if there's more, lead up in the story or more after it. So this is as much as I could find. But he's talking about going to the movies with his grandchildren, and it was like a Disney movie of some sort.
Back to the presentation I spoke to you earlier. What you see is what you see. They putting it everywhere.
Yeah.
I took my grandson to see what was the movie with Buzz Light?
Toy Story?
Not that one, but
Oh, the new Buzz. The Lightyear. I think it's
yeah,
called
with
Lightyear.
Kiki Palmer is in that movie.
Okay,
She
okay.
plays like the daughter. So we watching it, and the lady, which is Kiki's mama, they move on into the space years. They move down the line. They're like, man, she had a baby with a woman. Well, my grandson in the middle of the movie like, Papa Snoop, how she have a baby with a woman? She a woman. Oh, shit. I didn't come in for this shit. I just came to watch the goddamn movie. Hey, man, watch the movie. They just said she and she had a baby. They both women's. How did she have a baby? Shh. The movie ain't over with. So it's like, it fucked me. I'm scared to go to the movies now. Like, y'all throwing me in the middle of shit that I don't have an answer for.
What'd you tell them?
Watch the movie. Eat this popcorn. Shh.
You said, we don't know. We don't know.
It threw me for a loop. I'm like, what part of the movie was this? These are kids that we have to show that at this age, like
that part.
They're going to ask questions.
Yeah.
They are going to ask. I don't have the answer.
Yeah. And I don't even know the answer that's rehearsed. What am I supposed to say? Was the lady used to be I got questions. Now I got questions.
Me too. And I was just there to go to sleep and watch the movie. That nigga woke me up. I'm in there. Huh? They just said that she had a baby. How? They both women's. Oh, man. Damn. Here, eat this popcorn.
All right, so people are flipping out. They're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe Snoop Dogg. He doesn't, he doesn't know how to describe relationships. He's this, blah blah." Look, as somebody who's a parent, I'm gonna tell you, sometimes the simplest things get you. I promise you. Like you're in the movie, you're in the movie theater, you're watching a movie. You're not expecting your kid to loudly be like, "Wow, how'd this happen? What's going on here?" Right? Because that's how kids operate. Kids will just say something out of nowhere, catch you off guard, and you're like, what? And this is exactly what I'm talking about. People are giving him crap for just being an honest man. Did you, listen to what he said? He was like, I don't have the answer to that. I don't know. Now, you might say, well, you should know. Okay, well, we should a lot of things. But he's telling you, he's like, I don't know. I'm not sure what the right answer is. How do you talk about this to a child? How do you break this down simply? And some people get it and they can do it well and other people can't. And the problem that we have in our society is there's this crazy expectation like, oh, this is the norm now. Everybody should be able to explain it just like the norm. And if you can't, then you're some sort of bigot. Maybe you're a bigot, or maybe you got caught off guard, or maybe you never thought about, how do I explain this to a child? Okay? Explaining things to a child is far different than explaining things to an adult. Let me give you two examples. A simple one that really got me. I told you about this the other day. I'm helping my son learn to read. And so we're doing some of his homework with him. And so we're reading books. And we had to read this poetry book called I Am Six, full of poems. And sometimes they use words that are made up. Sometimes they use words that I wasn't familiar with that particular word. And my son would be like, what does that word mean? And I'm like, I don't know, right? Because I don't know everything. So we go look it up, and that's cool, right? No big deal there. But now that I'm helping him with his homework, he's got this these course that he has to go through, and he has to do these little segments. And at the beginning of the segment, what they do is they give him 3 or 4 or 5 words. And they're like, these are the words for this particular segment. These are brand new words. We're going to introduce them to you. So what they do is they define them. And then they use them in different ways to help bring the child to a new understanding of, okay, this word means this. Okay, cool. Well, if you get to the middle of that, and then now they start testing you on your comprehension and whether or not you understand those particular words, then you can't go back. So hopefully you learned it. So my son was struggling, and he was like, and he was clear he didn't understand what certain words meant. And so I was like, well, I know what these words mean. I could explain them pretty easily to my wife. But how do you break it down for a 6-year-old, right? And I was kind of flummoxed. I was like, I don't know. So what did I do? I got onto AI and I was like, explain this word like I'm 6. Or I think it was 5. And then it did it. I was like, oh, that's a really good way to explain it, right? So on the lighter end, like I was just like, I didn't have a clue how to explain it to a child. This is what people are missing. Like, yeah, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just don't know the answer. They're like, how come the sky's blue? And you're like, and you have to try to think of like, you try to remember, like, what did I learn about when I had that question, right? Sometimes they ask you a question and you know the answer. You just don't know how to communicate it at their level so that they can understand it, right? And so I think I think that's the lighter end. So let me tell you a different story. We have a dog, a she. You know where I'll go with this one, don't you? So she has not been spayed yet, and so she went into heat, and we had to get diapers for her. And my son said, "Dad, why are we putting diapers on Honey?" And I was like, and I had no clue. I was not prepared to answer this. Now, it's not a difficult question. If an adult asked me, I'd be like, she's in heat, which is the equivalent of, a human being in, a woman being in, having her period, having her menstrual cycle. Like, and I could, if you wanted me to explain what the menstrual cycle is, I could probably, do a fair job of doing that, right? But we're talking about a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old. So now he's like, Dad, why are we putting a diaper on Honey? And I was like, oh my God, I don't know how to answer this. And there's nothing complicated about it, really. I'm just overthinking it because I'm like, oh man, this is a 6-year-old. If I tell him this, like all this is going through my mind. If I tell him this, then he's going to ask about this. And then he's going to ask about this. And do I have an answer for this? And do I have an answer for this? And so all of a sudden now I'm thinking of about 12 questions ahead that I don't have answers for, or I'm not sure how I'm going to explain it to him, right? And make sure that he goes and explains it back correctly if he talks about it to somebody else. So now I'm worried about all this stuff. She's just in heat. It's not that big of a deal. So after about 30 seconds, I had my answer. I said, that is a good question for your mommy to answer. I totally kicked the football to my wife. And she did amazing. Here's what she said. He goes, Mommy, why do we have to put a diaper on Honey? And her answer was, and it didn't take her long. She said, well, she's growing into be a big girl now. And my son said, oh, okay. That was it. Like I overthought this like crazy. You know what I'm saying? I was like, oh my God, he's going to ask me. And then he's going to ask this. And then what if he gets it wrong? What if he tells people like, and I'm just like all this stuff. And my wife was just like, she's becoming a big girl. And he was like, okay. And that was the last time he asked about it. He never brought it up again. Didn't think about it. Nothing. Didn't ask anything. That was it. Oh, she's being a big girl now. It was that simple. Right? And I think for men sometimes we overthink this question, whatever question we're asked, because we're like, this is a kid. This is a child. I got to break this down for child, right? So am I mad at Snoop Dogg? No. Should anybody be mad at Snoop Dogg? No. If you are, you're being a fool and you need to knock it off. And you're part of the problem. People want to run around and they want to be like, men never show emotion. Men never show vulnerability. And then the moment a dad's like, or a grandpa in this case, he's like, man, I don't know the answer to that. Everybody's all like, they grab their pitchforks and they grab their tiki torches and they come after him. And I'm like, you're the problem. You're the reason why men do not show emotion, why men act like they know everything, even if they don't, and give the wrong answer. Because you don't allow men to just be like, I don't know, or you know what? This one got me uncomfortable. I'll tell you another story. I just thought about this one. This one was hilarious. This one made me so uncomfortable. I went with my wife is from Indonesia. She was born and raised there. We went to go and visit when her mom lived there. We went to go and visit her mom and her brother. And one of her her school friends, who's an adult now, has her own family. She came over with her 9-year-old daughter. I think it was 9. And we're eating. I'm eating some chicken, a chicken leg. Okay? And her friend remarks, she's like, you probably think our chicken is a lot smaller than your chicken. And I looked at it, I was like, yeah, you're right, kind of right. This chicken leg is a little bit on the smaller side. But I didn't really, like, I've had smaller chicken legs, so I initially didn't think much of it. But her friend, who lives in, was born and raised in Indonesia, she remarked that the chicken leg was smaller than American chicken legs. And she's like, that's because we don't put all those hormones and all this other stuff in our chicken. And I was like, oh, okay. Now you might think, okay, that's not a bad conversation. But it didn't stop there. Because then she went on and she goes, that's why girls have their periods so often. And then she looks at her daughter and she's like, you haven't had your period yet, have you? And the girl's like, no. And I'm all like, what's going on here? Whoa, stop. I didn't say anything because I was taken by surprise. But I'm like, whoa, stop. I don't even know you. Like, I'm just meeting you. And you're striking up a conversation that includes me about your daughter's period. I am extremely uncomfortable with this. And I told my wife, and she laughed. She's like, yeah, we talk about anything. And I'm just like, well, we don't. Like, there are boundaries here, right? So the idea that a man could be uncomfortable with a conversation, the idea that a man just might not know the answer, well, I can almost guarantee you that if he doesn't know the answer, the real problem, if you will, is that he doesn't know how to talk to a child like that. If a grown woman asked Snoop Dogg, about two women getting married, is he going to have all the answers? No. Is he going to be able to have a conversation with them? More than likely, right? It's different when you have a child because you're trying to break it down. And us men, we sometimes overthink it. We think 20 questions ahead, and we're like, I am not prepared for all these questions. But if I'm talking to somebody who's at my level, who's an adult as well, I don't get as worried about that necessarily. There are times where that happens, right? But not necessarily. So, in my opinion, what everybody did, they are the reason we have men that don't want to show vulnerability, that don't want to be, that don't want to cry, if you will, right? Like we had this argument a while back, should men cry? And I said, like, a man should do what a man feels comfortable doing, period. And everybody else can piss off. That's kind of my position on that. If you feel like you need to cry, then just do so, right? And if everybody makes fun of you, just be like, okay, whatever. I don't care. I did what I felt was appropriate, when I felt was appropriate. You can like it, or you can just take a hike. That's kind of how I feel about this situation. But I feel like what we're doing is we're just constantly beating up on men. Oh, you didn't have an answer for this? Why, everybody loves gay people. You should totally have an answer, and you should have been able to sit down and walk them through the ABCs of being tolerant. Go kick rocks. That's nonsense. Not everybody understands it well enough or has what they feel is the right answer. And if you're going to castigate people, well, I'm going to point the finger back at you later because I'm not going to forget. Now, let's move on to my last clip here because I think this was probably the best advice that you could ever have. This is at the very beginning of the show. So, and I didn't catch the woman's name, so I apologize. Again, it was a new podcast for me. I've never seen it before, never heard about it. I only investigated because I saw that Snoop Dogg was being taken through the ringer. And I was like, wow. And so then I initially went and I was like, all right, well, let me listen to the whole thing, get some context. And then I really wanted to listen to that particular segment more than just the clips going around. But unfortunately, I was only able to find the clip that I presented to you. That's the longest. So I think there might have been more conversation. I could have commented more on it, but I just didn't have access to it. So, but this advice at the very beginning of the show, this is great advice for anybody. So I want you to take a listen. Let's get back to the dad TV
Back to the
here.
presentation I
Oops,
spoke
that's
to
wrong
you
one.
earlier.
Hold on.
What you?
There we go.
Hey.
All right. So this is at the very beginning of the show. She's excited. Like, I'm not gonna lie. If Snoop Dogg was on my podcast, I'd be excited. I'd be like, oh my God, Snoop Dogg. Like I'd be screaming too. All right. So this is at the very beginning. She's introducing. I want you to hear what he had to say, right? Because he is objectively far more famous than she is, right? Far more successful. And I'm not dogging on her. I'm just saying, like, He's 53. He spent many years. He pioneered rap, gangster rap and all this stuff. So, he is at his level. She is at her level. I'm not, talking smack about her. I'm saying objective facts. He has far more success. That's why she's excited. I would be equally excited. So I want you to listen to what he had to say.
Crack-a-lackin', what's up? I'm the gift that keeps on giving, so I'm happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Do you know I almost threw my phone when I knew you were coming on this show? I almost did the jig. I almost caught the spirit. I was like, Snoop Dogg is here in the building.
No, but you got to understand what you're doing. People don't understand who be paying attention to what they doing. So it's like, it's always good to be on your best behavior and to be doing your best work, because you never know who's watching that may say, I want to do something with you or do something for you.
Yes.
So it's like the opportunity that I've been given through my career, I like to get that back.
Yes.
And when I see people like you doing what you're doing, reaching across, being information and giving, because see, I'm a giver. And then at the same time, it's like we need to uphold our Black women and push them and salute them when they doing it the right way.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? We always salute the ones that's doing it the other way, but when we got some doing it the right way, we should salute them as well. So that's why I'm here today.
Okay. So let's break that down into more generic advice. Now, he specifically mentioned like Black women, and he likes the hustle that she's got going on. He likes the work that she's doing. And so when there was an opportunity for him to bring some of his status to her show and give her a boost, he took it. Okay? Let's break that down. Rather than think of it in terms of like Black women, just think of it, if you're doing something, you're doing a podcast, right? Like I am. If you're like my VA lady, you've got your hustle working with all the podcast bros, helping them out. If you are a writer, right? If you produce videos in general, just you're a videographer, whatever it is that you do it well, as consistently as you possibly can, because you never know who is watching and waiting for the opportunity to give you a bump. And I think that was probably the best advice. Like, get your nose to the ground, work hard, deliver, right? Today, maybe things aren't going so well. You keep your head up, you keep focused on that work, because you don't know who's watching that you don't know, right? You can't gripe about it. Like if I'm watching somebody and I'm like, yeah, they've got some, they have potential, but I see that they just spend more time griping and they spend more time, making excuses about things. I'm not going to want to help them if I've got an opportunity to, use whatever success that I have accrued to assist with them, right? To help bring them up. I'm not going to want to do that, because I'm like, look, you need to stop whining. You need to stop doing all these things that are going to get in the way of the success, because it's kind of like years ago, sometimes people would say, can I put you down as a reference for this job? And I never, ever allow my name to be on a reference if I don't feel good about being a reference for you. If somebody calls me up and they're like, hey man, Fred put you down as a reference. If I can't immediately, off the cuff, talk good things about you and say, yeah, this is the guy, this is why you should hire this guy, I'm not gonna let you be a reference. I'm not gonna let you put me down as a reference, right? Because I want to build up with whatever success that I have, with whatever opportunity that I have. I want to build up other people that I think are going to be a good investment. They're going to make me look good, right? And what I mean by that is I just mean I'm not going to be embarrassed, right? If it's an investment where like I'm actually counting on your success for some of my success, then yes, I want you to make me look good. But otherwise, I just want to not be embarrassed by you. So there are people in the past where I've declined, and I'm like, yeah, I don't do references, or I give them some, whatever reason why. Like, no, right? I'm not going to always be a reference for somebody, because I'm like, I can't count on you, and I'm not going to allow you to tarnish my name. Snoop Dogg has spent, a couple decades building his name. Whatever you think of it, he's got a name. He's got a brand. His brand and his name are synonymous. They're the same thing. And so he spent a lot of time cultivating that, making it what it is, right? And then he's not going to go and give somebody his name that's just going to flop, or who hasn't been putting in the work. And so there's a phrase from George Reisman. He's an American economist, and he talks about how there's no scarcity to opportunities. Okay. But you're not always prepared for particular opportunities. And that's not always a bad thing, right? There are opportunities for a surgeon somewhere here in Jacksonville. I'm just presuming. Pretty sure it's a good presumption, right? But there's an opportunity. That opportunity is not available to me because I have done absolutely zero towards being a surgeon or a doctor or anybody in the medical field. So that's not an opportunity for me, but it's still there. It's an opportunity. It's just not for me, right? So I got to keep my focus on the things that I am doing so that when an opportunity arises, say in the podcast world, I'm ready. This is why I got to, this is one of the reasons why I keep taking the hits from my VA lady, who we joke about on the show, stands on my neck. She's like, hey, you're supposed to start at 7:30. It's 7:33. Yo, hit that start button right now, right? And it's frustrating sometimes. And I won't lie. Sometimes I'm all like, she going to learn about this just now. But sometimes I'm looking at it, I'm like, will you stop? But it's necessary. It's absolutely critical to have that, right? You need somebody that's going to push you and be like, no, we don't slow down. No, we either keep the same pace or we speed up and we keep working hard. Keep that focus, because if one day this podcast does blow up, guess who I'm going to credit? The people that were behind me, right? The people that were pushing me on the days where maybe I didn't want to be pushed. And I was, there are days where I get up and I don't need that push. I'm like, yeah, I'm on it. I'm like, bam, I'm like ready. I'm ready to start at 7:25, right? There's not that many days, but there's a few days where I'm like, I'm on it. I'm on fire. I'm excited. I wake up at 5 a.m. and I don't take a moment to lay there. I jump out of bed and I'm excited because I'm like, I can't wait to get into this episode. There are days like that. There are also days where I wake up at 5 and I'm all like, I got a beautiful woman here. Let me just snuggle up. The bed is warm. I don't know. I'm not feeling, too excited about this show topic today. Or sometimes I wake up every once in a while and I don't have a show topic, but I got to force myself. And those are the days where I need that kick, right? Those are the days maybe I need reprimanded. Hey, why were you late? The hell, right? We need those so that we can be on our best game, so that when an opportunity arises, if and when it does arise, can't guarantee it always will, but if and when it does, you are prepared for that opportunity. You are ready. Somebody has watched you and said, you know what? I think you're ready for this next level. And it doesn't have to be just limited to podcasting, right? It doesn't have to be some side hustle. It can just be you at your job. Once upon a time, when I worked for a fastener company, I went in there, I worked in the office and I worked in the warehouse. And I just did the best that I could in both of them. And I learned to roll. I learned other things. I started learning Excel and I started learning analysis and all this other stuff. And so when an opportunity came open for this new role in the company, we like to joke and call it like the Navy SEALs of the company, right? Because we handled the material. It was a distribution company. We handled the material from the time it hit our docks to the time that the customer would install it. Like I was involved in that entire process, and I had to have knowledge of it. I had to be able to go in and fix problems, create solutions, whatever, right? And I was able to get that position because I demonstrated that I was ready for it, because people were watching me, right? Maybe not intentionally. They weren't necessarily watching me per se, like, let's watch this guy and let's see if he's going to be a good candidate no, they were just watching me casually, and they kept seeing that I kept delivering and I kept doing well. And so then when I said, hey, I think I'd like this job, this opportunity, they were like, you know what? You've actually demonstrated that you're pretty solid a worker and that the skills that we're looking for, you've demonstrated. So yeah, let's go ahead and give you this shot. And they did. And I did well, right? This advice is phenomenal advice whether you're 14 or 40, right? And let's say you're 40 and you haven't been doing that so well. Well, get your butt in gear. The best time to do it was yesterday. The next best time is today. So get out there, hustle at whatever it is that you're doing, right? And look, I'm speaking to the people that want something more. If you're happy with what you got, if you're content, that's fine. If you're already doing a good job, awesome, right? But if you're like, man, I'm hungry, I want some more, or I would like to see a different opportunity, presented, available to me. Well, this is how you do it. You just get your nose to the grind. Is that how you say it? I can't remember. But, you put your head down and you get to work and you do it well. And when you do that, then you open up the door for opportunity, right? Now, you can't make an opportunity appear, but if one appears and you ain't ready, you ain't getting it. All right, folks, let's get to some comments here. And let's see what y'all saying in the chat here. This wires, I call it. I need to fix this. This will be on my list of things to do. Let's see. Yes. So, hold on. Let's go to the live chat here. Ba-boom. All right. So my VA lady, she points out, Liberty Dad is this close to watch hours to get monetized. So get me there, folks. Go watch my stuff. I mean, look, if you haven't seen some old episodes and you just, you want to put them on play and then accidentally leave the room, I can understand, but get me the watch hours, folks, if you can. Help me out on YouTube. I'm going to have some more information to you when we come back from my live stream break as to how you can help out the show. I'm going to have lots of good stuff for you. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, am I going to... So I changed this. Let me see if I can't... Let's do this. Hold on. Give me a second here. We're going to make that text a little bit smaller. There it is. There it is. All right. So we're making some improvements here, folks. That Liberty Lady says they're trying to make men of all race not strong as they can be. And as Larry Sharp would say, a lot of men have checked out. Women want to be on TikTok bitching about why they can't find a man. Yeah, that's true. I wanted to make sure I didn't cut off any of the text. Yeah, there's a lot of people out there. You got the guys that are crying about it. And they're like, oh, women only want a 6-foot man who makes 6 figures and this and that. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not 6 foot. And when I met my wife, I certainly wasn't making 6 figures. But somehow, by some way, I managed to, woo her and convince her that I was worth building a life together. So here we are, over 12 years later, right? I mean, and it's not the first time. Like, I convinced my ex-wife to marry me. Now, that one didn't work out, but no shade to her. It just, it didn't work for us for various reasons. I think mostly because, I was a bit immature. But I was able to convince not one, but 2 women to marry me. Now, I know I like to think of myself as pretty awesome as a podcast bro, but I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like you. If I can find 2 women to marry me, you can find 1. Keep your head up, work hard, show women what you got. Let's see what else we got in here. Let's see. Yeah, this is true. But you get the women treat the men like they do and wonder why they're not able to find a man. Yeah, like it goes both ways, right? Men, you need to be on your game. You need to stop whining. You need to just be a man, right? Do the things that a man would do. Deliver. Build yourself. Work on yourself. Make sure that you are worth marrying. And then women, you need to do the same thing. And you need to stop worrying about like if you're the kind of woman that's like all these men are terrible. It's a family. I'm gonna try to clean this up family-like. Okay. Cat Williams said it best. I think he said, I'm not even gonna try to clean it up because I don't think I can. So I'm just gonna say it just as raw as he did. He said if you're walking around talking about all these ain't shit niggas, he goes, what you really mean to say is all the niggas that you fuck with are ain't shit niggas. So you need to figure out what it is about your pussy that keeps attracting ain't shit niggas. So you can see why I was going to have trouble cleaning that up, and I apologize. I know we're trying to keep it family friendly on here, but sometimes I just got to lay it out straight to you, okay? And it's true. Like, you have to figure what it is about you that keeps attracting the people that you don't want. So change. I heard a story a long time ago that if two codependent people that don't know each other go to a party, they will somehow be attracted to each other. They will find each other, right? You have to change who you are so that you change what you get, what you attract. You attract a certain type of person. And if you want to attract a better type of person, you have to start with you. Be a better type of person. That goes for both men and women. All right, I'm done with the naughty language. I apologize. I probably should have thought about that. I probably could have figured it out. I apologize. Let's see what we got here. Yes, sitcoms have been making fun, making the man of the family look like an idiot for decades. They also do with animation like Family Guy. They make Peter look like an idiot. Yes, it's been happening. And look, I get it. It's fun to watch. It's funny. But at some point, we should demand something more. We should say, no, where are the good, strong fathers in the sitcoms where you balance out the masculinity, where we've got the emotion, we've got the humor, but then we've also got that stoic, awesome dad that everybody looks up to, from time to time. Because a man should have his family occasionally look up to him. Yes. And sometimes the wife gets it, like there are times where it's like, oh, I look and I go, yeah, my wife got that one right. I got it wrong. And then there are times when my wife's like, he got it right, I got it wrong, right? Now, as a standard American wife, she doesn't do that, right? She doesn't admit that she was wrong, because that would be deviating from what a wife is supposed to do here in America. I'm making a joke, folks. I'm making a joke. Just calm down, right? But the point being here is, like, that's what it means to be in a relationship, right? Sometimes they get it right. Sometimes you get it right. And we need to see more of that in our sitcoms for men or shows if we want better men. Let's see what else we got in here. That Liberty lady says, technically, I was late today. That's true. And that's okay. I'm going to engage in my more sympathetic man, and I'm going to say, it's okay. I get it. All right, folks, that's my show for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a little bit what you might not have known about Snoop Dogg. He had some good things to say in there. If you want, go check out the episode. As far as the controversy, I think it was a nothing burger. I think people need to get over themselves. No, men will not always have the answers, and it's okay to not always have the answer. And if you want men to show more of that, vulnerable side, then perhaps when they show the vulnerable side, you don't beat them up over it. How about that? If that's what you want, then figure out what it is about you that's causing men to be what you don't want them to be. With that, I'm going to head on out of here, folks, and I will see you not next week, but the week after, but you will see some videos. So thank you for joining me today, and have a good one.